interest is culture. It's because when our keynote speaker was talking about where are you from and are you diverse or are you multicultural or do you belong to one culture, like I feel like I have lived in I'm Latin America, I grew up in Canada, I spent 80 years in the Middle East. I have European parents, but I am Latin American, so I feel like I'm part of the world. And there's not a lot of talk about culture. I spent some time working in China, and we are different. Human beings are the same way. We are different, and we need to acknowledge cultural differences. Now, these approaches, psychology, as we were hearing this morning, is a Western practice. And until we actually put a focus on the Eastern application of it, we're just imposing. We're just kind of sealing with a seal that doesn't necessarily fit for everyone. Something that is important too is when we talk about cultural differences, most of the time what we're talking about is difference between individualistic societies and collectivist societies. That is the main difference that we really want to look at. And none of them is consciously integrated with other theories. Having said that, there's a lot of integration, mostly for the later ones. So for example, PACT, which is the latest approach, integrates a lot of the other ones, but we don't call it integration. What that means is like there's not a structured integration of it. We don't know this comes from here, this comes from there. Okay, so this is in general. So today, what we have is all of these applications to mindfulness, and we have normal people in pain, in love, in desperation, and in the search for hope. So what you're going to know about all of these people, and John Kabat-Zinn, I included him here because the approach that we're talking about today talks about mindfulness, but it's mostly relating to all of these people, including Esther Perel, who's brought a lot of the awareness to sexuality, is that they all struggle in relationships, all of them. And the reason why their big interest has been in the field of couple therapy most likely is because of their personal lives. I struggle in relationships, and that's why it's my interest as well, right? And something that again, our keynote speaker said this morning that I just found fascinating. She said, we can only come from where we have been, right? We can only come from where we have been, right? So if I ask each one of you, I'm pretty sure that each one of you has a story. Each one of you has a story of development, has a story of relationships, has a story of heartache, has a story of longing, has a story of greatness in the relationships, right? So we can only come from where we have been. So all these people have been in some places that motivated them to search for more. And so what is the prediction? So again, the person that proposed the cognitive behavioral couple therapy approach, Gorman is his last name, he actually did predictions for the future of couple therapy. And he's written the major couple therapy books. And he predicted that because they all work, right? We said they all work. So if they all work, so which one do we do, right? So I said, well, we do them all. Because they're all going to have things in common, but they're also going to have great and fantastic exceptionalities, right? So the couple therapy of the future is got to be an integrative. So that brings us for another 15 minutes to talk about heart. So this is what you guys are here to see. So what is heart? Heart is an existential humanistic approach that uses mindfulness and that integrates all of the other couple therapy approaches. When I began with proposing this theory, I called it MIRT, which was a mindfulness integrated relationship therapy. And when I was training one of the group of therapists, they kept calling it HEART, right? And it actually included the words of humanistic and existential. But the reason why it's really called HEART is because it is integrate. It's when we bring the heart. So we are actually really working with our brain. It's a therapeutic approach that uses our brain a lot, but it uses our presence. It uses our authenticity. It's a positive psychology approach. We are not working in this approach to change people. So when I work with people, actually even with individuals, I tell them, I'm not in the business of changing you. And we shouldn't be in the business of changing people. We are in the business of helping people be their best self. So it's an expansion process. It's a growth process. So what is this approach all about? It's about bringing people to be back into their best relational self. So if I ask you for a moment, and then maybe just let's do this for 1 minute, just for a minute, just think of yourself at your best in relationships. When you're at your best, when you're the happiest, when you don't have fear. Fear is the one that steals our joy, is the thief of joy, right? When we're not afraid, if I'm not afraid to be judged, if I'm not afraid to be abandoned, if I'm not afraid to be rejected, how am I? Am I playful? Am I creative? Do I like touching and hugging? Right? So who is our best relational self? Now, that best relational self is the person that we fell in love with when we fell in love with our partners. Right? So we say, oh, you changed. No, we didn't change. We shrunk. Fear kicked in. And when fear kicked in, we went from here being our full presence and authentic self to being this very diluted version that is protecting from being hurt, right? And how do we protect? We protect by attacking, right? By reminding our partner what they need to do differently, by nagging them, by yelling, by exaggerating our emotions. Or we protect by hiding, by not talking, by going into our cave, by not saying anything, by pretending we don't care. So protecting mechanisms. What happens if we're not afraid? We show up, right? That beautiful self comes out. So that's what we're doing with couples. We are helping them bring out their authentic self. Yeah? Okay, so I'm gonna go, so all of these topics that somehow became all number one are seven parts, and I'm gonna just go through them very quickly, one slide at a time. So HEART is an existential, humanistic, and mindfulness-based approach to couple therapy. So it's based on the therapist's context. So when we're talking about if I'm married or if I'm single, that should not be an indicator of my effectiveness as a couple therapist. That is true. However, I come from where I have been. What does that mean? That my context in relationships is going to have a great impact on the way that I do therapy. We are trained, I was trained as a psychologist, my first training was in cognitive behavioral therapy. I was trained to leave my problems in the door, like hang it, right? Walk into our office and then hang my problems, right? And now it's all about my client, right? And I can do that, very good. So we have a context and we bring it with us. When is our context a problem? Our context is a problem when we pretend that it doesn't exist. When I pretend that I'm okay, I'm no longer in relationship with my client. I don't exist anymore. And if the therapeutic relationship is the agent of change and of healing, how can I heal if I'm not there? And I am there with all that I am, with the fight that I had with my husband in the morning. I'm there with my hope of with my hope of getting a job that is not coming through, or having a child, or my fears, right? So therapeutic context is going to be very important. It uses the therapeutic relationship that is passed on to the dyad. So from the therapist to the client to the couple, so the two people in the relationship. Talks about possibilities within limitations, and that is the existential humanistic part. So we talk about we are humans and we are surrounded by limitations. Limitations are real. I cannot change the fact that I'm a woman. I cannot change the fact that I am a Latin American woman. I cannot change the fact that English is my second language. I cannot change the fact that I am certain height. I cannot change the fact that I am right now in Dubai. I am not right now in Canada with my family. Right? This is limitations. I cannot change that. But what are my options within those limitations? How can I actually be all that I can be within that instead of fighting those limitations? So how do we understand psychopathology? Psychopathology is the over-identification with the limitations. When I focus on the limitations so much that I cannot step out of it. Right? And that's going to happen with couples all the time. But he did this. But he doesn't do that. But look at her. Right? We over-identify with those limitations and we forget about the options that we have. So it's a full empowering theory. Now, incorporates the concept of ultimate self-worth. We talk about we are ultimately worthy. regardless. And then we bring that into the relationship context. It aims for co-actualization. So you have heard the concept of self-actualization. So we heard of Maslow, and we said, oh, we have basic needs and belonging needs and self-esteem needs. And then at the top, we have self-actualization. Well, there's another one, which is co-actualization. It's becoming the best that we can be in the relationship context. Now, something that I learned about Maslow that I didn't know, which is fantastic, is I always thought co-actualization is I can be the best that I can be. Actually, co-actualization, what he meant is I can be childlike. A co-actualized person is a person that is like a child. What is a child like? Playful, creative, passionate, present, authentic. That is what we aim for. So we're always reaching that. It's circular instead of a pyramid. So we want to aim for co-actualization. Okay, I'm gonna go really fast. Now, it works with relationship between I and me and the I and the thou. So we pass on that relationship. It brings awareness to stepping out of apathy. Apathy is a routine life that is living automatic pilot to connection. So it brings presence. It's about being present, then connecting, and then stepping into awe. Is a relational mindfulness approach. What does that mean? When we talk about mindfulness, we know that mindfulness is paying attention moment by moment, non-judgmentally, right? What do we pay attention to? Our breath. Why our breath? Because we're breathing all the time. That's the only reason. So what is relational mindfulness? We pay attention to the other person as if they were our breath. Yeah. What will happen if I actually paid attention to you instead of migrating into my reptilian brain that is always telling me stories of how you're going to hurt me? Right? So it just brings relational mindfulness. I'm going really fast. I just got the sign of 5 minutes, so we still have a lot more slides. We talk about social myths. So again, we step out of social media telling us about what relationships will be like, and we're going to talk about research-based facts instead of social myths, such as people get divorced because they have irreconcilable differences, or those people are happy because they found the right person, right? Myths. What are the myths that I believe in? Oh, that person is single because they are focused on their career. Okay. So facts such as happy relationships require work, they are conscious, they are manual, not automatic, like a car. They are differentiated, two complete different people that create a relational space. All happy relationships have conflict, they require growth, and they require healing. All good relationships have conflict. A good relationship is not measured by the lack of conflict. It's measured by the frequency and the length of conflict. How fast do we step out of conflict? How often do we have conflict? And happy relationships are integrated by commitment, friendship, and passion. We need the three. If one of them is lacking, the relationship starts to break. Commitment, I'm going to be with you through thick and thin. Friendship, you're my friend. I want to talk to you. You're the person I want to hang out with. Passion, I want to have sexual intimacy with you. You are the only person in the world that I want to do that with. Yeah? Okay. So it's a theoretical, no, it's an integration. So again, this one I'm going to go very fast. What does that mean? It grabs all of the couple therapy approaches and it just integrates the commonalities, so we don't have to learn them 4 times, but it integrates all the commonalities and it adds all the exceptionalities of them. So we are learning all of the theories, but we are learning it in a structured, highly structured approach. This is not an unstructured approach. We bring a lot of our own creativity as skilled professionals. So this is not an approach for unskilled professionals. So if you're a therapist, you have skills already. We bring those skills and we structure it in a way that we utilize all of the other theories. And it's a mind, body, and soul approach. What does that mean? Mind uses the tripartite brain, right? Prefrontal lobe, limbic system, reptilian brain. It talks, and then cognitions, the stories we tell ourselves, all this beautiful theory that we learned from CBT, learning to catch that story, those cognitions that we had, those limiting beliefs. We talk about biology. We talk about nonverbal memories, everything that is stored in our body, right? We know that about 60% of our behaviors are based on nonverbal memories, things we cannot express with words because they were stored in our body before we had language. And we look at posture, we look at relationship, like just the movement between people tells you so much about the person. And soul is our emotions, our heart. Is I like to call it our smart heart, right? It's not just an explosion of emotions that we cannot control, but it's understanding our emotional world. Okay, so we look at ourselves. So we start by working with the relationship with the self, and that relationship gets translated into the relationship between the dyad. Now, these are examples. So something that I'm going to say to all of you is, if you want a copy of the presentation, I'm going through the slides very fast. I have some examples of what you will learn in this theory. If you want a copy, I actually have a little dish here if you want to give me your business card, or if you don't have a business card, so you can write your email address, and then I'll send you the presentation. So I have it here at the front of the room. Okay, so heart focuses on culture, and I already spoke about that. What does that mean? We want to know about the exceptionalities of each culture, and it is a cultural approach. We are not all the same, and that is beautiful. We don't have to be all of the same, but we have to pay attention to our differences and to our sameness as well. And it brings therapists to their highest potential. So what is the aim of this approach? The aim of this approach is to grab who you are already, all of the skills that you already have, and then it's immersing in a full awareness of your relational context. And how do I apply this with couples? So we're going to use presence, authenticity, and empathy. Presence meaning I show up. Authenticity, I show up as who I am. And when I can show up as who I am, I can actually begin to understand the world of the other person. Right? So it's first on me, then on my clients. Now, we want to understand culturals, we want to understand our own culture and the culture of other people, and we want to understand our heartful and structured practice. When we go too much into the heartful practice, sometimes we forget about the structure. When we go too much into the structure, sometimes we forget about connection. Right? So we need both to have a real good healing practice. And so, okay, and then this is, I already said, so what is the movement in relationships? So we bring couples from that bliss that they experienced that brought them together in the first place, right? To the despair that they experience when they are presenting in your practice. To safety and passion. So those three parts, so the connection, the commitment, the friendship, and the passion in the relationship. This whole approach, when we talk about a heart approach, what we're talking about is two movements: increasing positivity, helping couples do everything that they already know how to do right, because they do. Take away the fear so they can show up. And decreasing negativity. What does that mean? Healing the wounds. Healing the wounds that were created because of the fear-induced behaviors in the relationship. Yeah. So this is in a nutshell, what this heart approach to couple therapy is. And if you have more questions, I know that we are almost on time. So if you have any questions, I have a little booth right there. If you want to come and talk to me, we don't have time for questions, right? We do? Yes, because we started a little bit later.
1 o'clock we have to be at the bubble room for lunch. We would like to eat, and it's had been reduced to 1 hour. So 2 o'clock we're starting the workshops again. But maybe 1 or 2 questions before we go, if there is anything. Yeah.
So is there 1 or 2 questions? And maybe just one message. If I were to summarize this whole presentation in one message that I would really want every therapist in the world to know is, do not be afraid to see couples. We get so scared. They're going to fight in front of us. Do not be afraid to see couples. It's actually a beautiful practice and it's just a practice where you can feel very, very effective. And you can feel that the healing that you're creating with this diet is actually going to their children, is going to their communities, is going to their workplaces, is going to their society. So don't be afraid to see couples. But if there's anyone with a question?
I'm just interested because you said that each of the different models work, they're effective. Yes. So why the need to bring them together?
because they are effective. However, because there are missing parts, some are going to be more effective in one way and some are going to be more effective in others. So if you want to have a practice that is effective with most couples that you see, you want to actually integrate. Now, depending who is the therapist. So for example, if you're an EFT practitioner, EFT is an